welcome to Burnout and Beyond, where we discuss the impact that burnout has on leaders in various industries and the trends that they're finding and discovering in their journey to recovery. I am Victor Bartley, your host, and today we are blessed and privileged to have Geston Pierre with us today as our guest. Geston, welcome to the space, man.
Hey, what's up, Victor? It's a privilege to be here and to join the ranks of those who have gone before me to be guests on the Burnout and Beyond podcast, man. It's an honor to be here.
Man, I appreciate you accepting the invitation, man. So many people already know who you are, and I am privileged to have you here in the space with me, man. But if you just kind of give that quick 30-second commercial about who you are and what you do.
Well, first of all, I love that separation between who you are and what you do, because oftentimes people, think that what they do is who they are. So thank you for framing the question that way.
Absolutely.
I am a father of a 5-month-old, a husband. I am a pastor. I am a musician. I am a podcaster. I'm a voiceover artist, and I'm simply on a mission to inspire people with my voice before I expire. And so whether I am sharing with a congregation, with a university campus, or on a podcast like this, I just count it a privilege to use my voice as my weapon of impact.
Man, that's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible. Awesome, man. You are in so many different spaces. And I know that our relationship and connection go a few years back to our shared journey in seminary, and of course while you were doing the music thing as well, and still are, I believe, man. And so that's absolutely awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So if you would catch us up to speed on just one experience that you'd like to share, burnout that you've had.
Sure. I've been privileged to work, of course, in the nonprofit faith-based space as a pastor. And it's interesting. My journey has taken me to a predominantly white congregation, to a mixed congregation, and now I'm serving in a predominantly Black congregation. But after graduating from seminary and beginning my pastoral career, I was assigned to a conservative Caucasian congregation. Those are a unique adjectives that I know that are perking your ears.
Yeah.
Conservative
Yeah, unpack
Caucasian
that a little bit, man. Unpack that a
congregation.
little bit.
Yeah. So the moment I found out that I was hired by this conference and I would be assigned to a church to serve as associate pastor, it was interesting because I'll never forget what the conference president at that time said to me. He said, "This is a redneck church." I'm quoting him. This is what he told me,
Oh,
right?
wow. Wow,
And
wow,
I was
wow. Okay.
shocked. I was like, "Are you serious?" And so
Mm.
basically, when I got there, I discovered that they would have a problem with me being there just because of the color of my skin. Although we, love God, and, I was there to serve, to partner, to co-labor as a pastor, to mobilize the membership, to do ministry. A lot of them
Mhm.
had issues with me simply because of the color of my skin. And, when I first got there, I noticed, the awkwardness. I noticed the comments that people were making. And at first I tried to brush it off. Like, they'd say something and I'd ignore it and act like I didn't hear it. But after a while, man, those things began to pile on me. And I began to notice the
Mm.
toxicity. And Victor, I tell you, it got so bad that when I started driving to work, it felt like there was a cloud settling over me. Like I
Wow.
literally felt like
Wow.
I was getting depressed as I was going to work, right? And so I recognized that, there were some serious issues going on, and because I didn't initially acknowledge how I felt and how it was affecting me, I think the burnout kind of just hit me hard. Like, and when it hit me, I knew it was there. And so I ended up serving there for a total of 2 years. Now,
Okay.
mind you, it wasn't really enjoyable, but I
Hmm.
still went to work. I showed up, did my best to love people, to serve. And the first year, I kind of ignored what I saw going on and ignored how I was being treated. But eventually, the second year, it got really, really bad, and I was actually planning on resigning. I was planning on leaving that job, and it's funny. It's not funny, but before I could even leave, the church ended up putting me out, and so it was interesting
Wow.
because it was an interesting time in 2016 in our nation. We saw Philando
Mm.
Castile and other situations going on in our nation, and I would preach sermons occasionally, and I would mention some of those issues, and I would talk about race relations, and it was not received well. I tried to do it tactfully and strategically. I wasn't bashing them, but I was just talking about it. I think this is important to talk about. And so,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
in response, they kept telling me, like, hey, you can't talk about those things here. It's inappropriate. And I refused to back down on my convictions, and
Mhm.
ultimately it led to them, letting me know that I was to pack my bags and leave. And the way our church structure works, we have conferences
Mhm.
that govern the churches, and the conferences hire and place and fire pastors. Churches have no say really. But it was interesting that the church fired me and didn't even tell the conference. And so I had to tell my boss, like, hey, they have removed me from the church. And he was like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I'm done there. And that's how we found out. And so
Wow.
it was a toxic situation.
Yeah.
And aside from what I was dealing with at the church, even the community around the church, there were many times when I was driving through the area doing visitations where a police would pull me over simply for DWB. Like, what are you doing? Whose car is this? And just, stay out of trouble, boy. Like, I'm talking about literally pulling me over to bother me, right? And I'm grateful
Wow.
that, nothing serious ever happened, because I know in some cases when people are often stopped and frisked or bothered, tensions flare, but I'm just grateful for the gift of life and the opportunity to still be here. But I
Wow.
know, like, in some of those scenarios, had I lost my cool, there would
Mhm.
have been a different outcome. And
Absolutely.
so, I was dealing with my context, and I was dealing with the congregation. And I'll tell you, Victor, before I got let go, I decided that I would get a part-time job at the happiest place in the world. Right? I was in Central Florida. I
Mm.
was like, I'm going to go work at Disney World. If I'm going to be unhappy here, I'm going to go get a part-time
Mm.
job at the happiest place in the world, right? And
Wow.
so that was my exit strategy. I'm going to go work at Disney, get my foot in the door, and eventually, navigate another career in another industry.
Okay.
And long story short, I didn't end up pursuing that path, but I made a decision, Victor, that I needed another outlet.
Okay.
As I
Okay.
was going through that, I just decided, listen, this is a lot. It's taking a toll on me. I can't change
Absolutely.
my situation right now, but
Absolutely.
I'm going to do this on the side just so that I can have a different outlook, a different experience, because this experience is weighing me down.
Man, you've unpacked a lot. One of the realities, and I'm sure that you know this well from what you shared, that burnout can have a variety of triggers. Some are a bit more commonly discussed, from be it from health crisis to overload on media and technology to
Hmm.
unfulfilled living, to just your background following you and being on your back in the present. Just that reality um, weighing you down. Um, but there's another aspect of burnout that isn't spoken about, and I don't hear it spoken about very much, and it's what I classify as societal caste.
Mm.
Um, and you're hitting it head on, man. And in your experience, your encounter really articulates the reality of that.
Yeah.
And wow, man. And so to hear how it weighed you down, and I'm reminded of some words that BB King said when asked about the impact that um, the society that he was living in had on him. And so
Yeah.
he turned to the blues literally in order to express the despair to build hope, essentially.
Yeah.
And so he talked about how on the face, on the outside, like he was doing fine, but deep down inside, emotionally, like something was undone, and
Hmm.
there was deep repair that needed to uh, that was needed in his soul, in the fiber of his being, and really, it was just all tied to societal caste. Now, I
Yeah.
use the term caste because it's not one that we frequently use, and this is a shout out in the book cast by Isabel Wilkerson,
Hmm.
and I think she in a creative and really just powerful way connects the acknowledged caste system of India with the denied caste system of America.
Hmm.
And she talks about the various roles and spaces that people are to remain in based on where they were born and the family that they belong to. And she likens it to the caste system of America that has been in place from the inception of the this nation's origin,
Hmm.
and how obviously at the top there are those that identify as white, and then those at the bottom rung of the caste that are labeled as black,
Yeah.
and just the reality that the encouragement, the push, the pressure is to essentially stay in your place.
Yeah.
And so what you speak to is something that others in marketplace industries and sectors deal with on a frequent basis, that struggle, the tension to show up authentically,
Yep.
to be inclusive, to be connected with those that you share space with, and to know that you're being rejected,
Yeah.
to know that you're being rejected, that you are being dehumanized, that you're being devalued, simply not because of your poor performance, or because you've provided some level of incompetency, but simply because of pigmentation,
Right. And that's
because of melanin.
powerful. Whew.
Yeah,
Victor, there are people listening to this podcast who
yeah,
are perhaps the first Black to be in their space, to be in their organization. And this
absolutely.
is hitting them heavy because they
Yeah,
show up and they know they're strong. They know they're gifted. They know they're capable. But the very
absolutely.
essence of who they are is being not just neglected, but chipped at. They're being chipped at. They're being demonstrated. They're being reminded that who they are is a problem, and they
Yeah,
can't just be. They have to tiptoe and just put on a different mask the next day and
mhm,
and the
mhm,
next day. But people are tired, and as
yeah,
strong as you think you are, this
yeah,
thing still takes a toll on you.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's so powerful that you're sharing that and articulating that point, because one of the first things, obviously, having a black men in this culture, we know that there are other peoples of colors and communities, ethnic groups that are placed differently in the human hierarchy um, of American culture and society,
Hmm.
and they can each go through their various challenges with this caste system as well, where their humanity is in question, essentially.
Hmm.
And that takes a toll on people. And so the kind of challenge is, do I authentically show up, or do I just assimilate?
Right.
um, and yeah, and you chose, and you mentioned kind of that tension that you had to, just try to work with them, to try to
Right.
assimilate as best as you could, and that even didn't work, right?
No.
And it brought you to, right, just this, basically this explosion, where they put you out. Wow. And we obviously are talking about this in the podcast, but this could have potentially been something more legal
Oh, yeah,
had
definitely. I
had,
thought
had you.
about that several
Yeah.
times. I thought
Yeah.
about, should I take legal action?
Mhm.
But at the time, I literally decided that I would resign from that organization, and I continued working at Disney World until I
Mhm.
relocated to California. Now, in
Okay.
California, there was another opportunity to serve at a church. Mind
Yeah.
you, the pay was half of what I was making in
Mhm.
Florida. So the cost of
Wow.
living in California is higher, but the compensation would be half as much as I was making in Florida. And so I took a leap of faith, a risk, knowing
Yeah.
that I would be there only for a season, because
Mhm.
I knew that I needed to heal and I needed to continue to pursue my passions. And so I went. I moved to Oakland, California. I wasn't making much money, but I was happier. I was thriving. I was enjoying life. I was testing out different things. I was
Yeah.
pursuing other passions and interests that I have, and
Man.
I have no regrets. I ended up
Yeah.
spending 2 years in California, longer
Okay.
than I expected, and I truly believe that my healing took place in that new context, in that new chapter.
Mhm.
And while being in California, I realized just because I had a bad season in Florida doesn't
Mhm.
mean that I have to throw away my whole pastoral experience or journey. I leaned
Mhm.
into it, I embraced it, I got some counseling. I also decided that if I do begin to pastor again, I want to set boundaries and I want to make it clear that I would like to only do it in these contexts. So I
Mhm.
realized I may not be able to control what happens to me all the time, but I can choose which opportunities I entertain. So
Mhm.
I decided that I wanted to work for organizations that work with predominantly minorities and other ethnicities. And so I want to be in a context that allows me to thrive, to be myself, that accepts me for who I am. And I don't want to be tiptoeing around anybody else again. And so that's what I decided to do. And now I'm back serving in ministry on the East Coast in New Jersey, and I'm enjoying it. But a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that because they had a bad experience that they have to throw it all away and do something else in another field. But you can start again.
That's it.
I've been
That's
in
it.
pastoral ministry for 8 years now, since graduating seminary. We met
Okay.
at grad school.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
on paper, Victor, I'm
Yeah.
still considered a rookie. I'm still
Mhm.
unordained. Does that
Mhm.
bother me? No. Why? Because it's a part
Mhm.
of my story and I embrace it. I
Yeah.
embrace the fact that although I have been an associate pastor 3 times and I've not been a senior pastor except for an interim assignment, I have lots of experience in different settings and different contexts in our nation. And I realize that I've learned something from every season of my ministry. And so I
Mhm.
embrace the fact that
Yeah.
I am where I am and that I've done what I've done. And I don't see it as a deficiency. I see it as a benefit. I see it as a blessing. And I know that wherever I end up next, I'll be all the more better because of all that I've been through and all that I've learned in those seasons. And so never belittle the seasons that you've experienced, because your
Yeah.
experience is ultimately your expertise.
Man, that's man, that's so powerful. That's so powerful, man. You hit on so many different things. I love what you said about, taking the lessons and learning from it,
Yeah.
right? Just kind of going to the fire, almost this idea of not looking at it only as I lost some things. There was some hurt that I experienced. There were some there were some wounds that I got along the way. There's some things that I lost,
Yeah.
but there were some lessons too,
Hmm.
right? There were some lessons in the fire of, like, you know what, like, I was a victim, but I also can set better boundaries,
Yeah.
right, man? The maturity to do that, in the recovery process is so important, because you're absolutely right. While the organization, both at the local church as well as the governing body, held responsibility for what happened, and even the layer of the government, the governing faith body, that had no awareness of what was going on. Well, I shouldn't say had no awareness. That put you, ill placed you, really,
Right.
from the beginning. It led to, it set you up for burnout, right?
Yeah.
It set you, they set you up for that type of scenario, with the leader, the president, saying, making those comments about this being a regnet congregation.
Hmm.
You know, you understand that, and you still do that. And so we know that while there's the responsibility that leaders have to guard against burnout,
Yep.
there's a role that organizations have as well, to do their due diligence, to create cultures and environments where their leaders, where those that work alongside with them, those that partner with them in the goal of the company and the mission of the organization, are in the best position to thrive.
Right.
And that was something that was not done. And all of these things that were not done for you, you said, at the end of the day, like, I've got to set boundaries.
Right.
I've got to say no. You know,
Hmm.
I can pick where I go, whether the options are plenteous or few. Like, I have agency,
Right.
right? I have agency, and that's extremely powerful. Man, I also love what you said as well about just pivoting, um, not just running away from, the dark seasons of our lives, but going through them.
Yeah.
Man, as children, and I don't know, I know you said that you're a father. Congratulations on joining the parent and fatherhood club, man.
Thank you.
But my kids are just a little bit older than yours, not very much. We have a 3-year-old and two that are almost two,
Wow.
and they don't like the dark all the time, right?
Hmm.
And so they're rushing to find light, and that's something that's understandable, right? But we can do the same thing in our life experiences. In the dark places, we can run from them rather than
Hmm.
walk through them.
Right.
And man, to hear how you've done that is so incredible, man. It's
Yeah.
so incredible. And I know that listeners, those that are listening to this podcast, hearing your story will be so impactful for them, because some people have just been sitting on the outside of the dark space and saying, I'm not going in there. Right?
Hmm.
I'm not going to face it. I'm just going to settle where I am and not pursue the more authentic me on the other side of that dark room.
Yeah.
And man, that's powerful. Um, what you were able to do, man. If there's any other, if there was maybe one tip that you could share with that leader, that pastor, or and I know you operate in other industries and spaces, is there's that one tip that you could share with them about beginning their recovery process, what would it be?
Yeah. I would say to you, own your story. Don't be ashamed of it. Instead of leaning away from it, lean into it and
Mm,
make sure that you learn those lessons that you need to learn. I think that a lot of times we try to, like Victor mentioned, we try to leave the dark really fast and get to the light. But there's a blessing in those dark seasons. And I'll tell you, like, you know, you can immerse yourself in passions and interests that you have, and you'll
mhm,
discover that at the place of your biggest hurt, at the place of your pain, there's an opportunity there. So there's
mm.
another part of my story. When I moved to California, I
Yeah.
ended up connecting with an organization, and I worked with free intelligent conversations. I was literally walking around through San Francisco and Oakland, just having conversations with people, strangers, and it was a wonderful experience. And out of that opportunity, I met someone who asked me, "Hey, do you know anybody that you disagree with politically to have a talk at the University of California in Berkeley?" I was like, "Yeah, I
Wow.
know a few people." So I reached out to one of my friends,
Yeah.
and, childhood friend. We disagree politically. He looks like me. We grew up together. And I said, "Hey, there's an opportunity to speak at UC Berkeley. Will you come?" Yeah. They flew him out. They took care of us, gave us an honorarium. And that began my public speaking career.
Wow.
Right. So since then, I've done, Brigham Young University in Utah. I've spoken in Florida virtually. Last week, we spoke at the alma mater of President Joe Biden, University of Delaware. And
Okay.
we have
Yeah.
more schools coming up at the end of this year and next year. And I realized, like, okay, the experience that I went through at my first district in Florida, dealing with people who disagree with me, that was preparation for what I'm doing now, even part time, with my friend and political frenemy. And so there's no opportunity that is wasted. And by the way, our price has gone up. Yesterday's price was yesterday's price. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, there's a blessing. There's a blessing
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
leaning
Yeah.
into that place of pain. So get
Man.
comfortable with dealing with the uncomfortable.
Mm,
Don't lean away
man.
from it. Lean into it and embrace your story, because the mere fact that I've pastored a conservative congregation, a conservative Caucasian congregation, a
Mhm,
mixed congregation, a
mhm.
black congregation, and I have a talk on college campuses with a friend who is a politician and a Republican. People are interested in my journey, in my story, and they're willing to pay me to share my story. Imagine that. So lean into your place of pain, because you never know what blessing can come out of it.
Man, that's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible, man, to hear your story, man. That's so awesome, man. You said it again for those in the back that didn't hear you, right? The
Yeah.
prices have changed. The prices have changed. They aren't the same from yesterday, man. I love it. I absolutely love it, man. Man, GP, man, it's been so great having you in the space and sharing this time with you. Tell us how we can find you and connect with you for those that are listening and saying, man, I have to have him come to our school or our organization, or you're a pastor as well. You do the podcast. You're a podcaster, and you're a musician
Yeah.
as well, man. You have so many different facets to who you are that have led to various things that you do. Tell us how we can connect with you.
Yeah, man. As you're saying that, I'm just asking myself, am I doing too much? But I remember that even though I'm in different sectors, music, public speaking, and pastoring,
Mhm.
I still only use one instrument, and that's my voice. And so, I
Mhm.
still see myself in my lane, although I'm in different lanes. But if you want to reach out to me on Facebook, Geston Pierre, on Instagram. My name is GP, the podcast plug. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can also visit respectandrebellion.com, a movement
Okay.
featuring speakers who disagree politically or religiously, and they share their disagreements and discuss on better ways to deal with conflict resolution and to decrease the level of polarization in America. That's respectandrebellion.com, and you can find my speaker page on that website. And we look forward to coming out to your high school or college in 2022.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. GP, it's been a privilege to have you, to hear your story, and again, we just thank you so much for sharing with our listeners just the nuances and the beauty and the burden that you've carried. That's ultimately led to the blessing that your life is and continues to be, man.
Thanks for having me, Victor, and thank you for launching the Burnout and Beyond podcast.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And those that are joining us, we want to thank you again for watching this latest episode of Burnout and Beyond, again with our guest, Geston Pierre. And always remember that burnout is an invitation to begin again. Peace out.